Hey guys, welcome back to the Good Stuff Podcast, where we try to help you love where you live just a little bit more by talking about the good stuff going on in the community, or maybe get more out of your house, or help you prepare to get into a new house if that's your thing. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams Consultants Realty here in Marysville, Ohio. So yeah, that's me. And today we're going to talk building, construction, barns, barn dominiums, all the stuff that this guy does. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, I am Rodney Berry. I am the owner of Berry Construction here in Marysville. I have been self-employed for roughly 7 or 8 years.
Just a few years.
Just a couple years, just enough to know a little bit about what you're doing. Have a wife and 2 kids. One just turned 4 and one is turning 1 on my birthday.
That's right.
Also now known as her birthday. No longer mine.
More importantly, yeah, sorry, we won't be there.
Dun dun dun.
Okay, so one of the best things about real estate, clients become friends. That's how this happened. So we're friends. We more than colleagues, I guess maybe you'd say.
Yes, I would say. We bonded over drywall.
Yes. I was trying to think, how many sheets was it? Do you remember?
It was a lot.
72 is what I was thinking.
That sounds right.
So
72.
he and his wife were looking at houses. One of us said, "Oh, what you doing this weekend?" I'm hanging drywall. I got 72 sheets of drywall, and 36 hours and 3 days later, we got
72 sheets of drywall.
Sheets of drywall hung up, and then we've had lots of projects. And, lots of projects, lots of drywall. Bunch of kids, between everybody.
Yeah.
And
we went from 0 kids to way too many kids. Not way too many, but enough to keep us busy.
Quick enough.
That's a very short amount of time.
That's for sure. Businesses and growth and all that stuff. So anyway, good friends. So I'll try not to be too biased, but So you've been doing this since you're 14, right?
15.
15. Okay, I had 14 in my head.
Yeah, we'll just call it 15. Yes.
14 and a half. Got the middle. Anyway.
Yes.
So in there. So you've done all kinds of stuff since then. Lots of experience. I mean, you used to do a lot of tile, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. We've done everything from, we've built custom homes growing up, tile, trim, basements, kitchens, all the above.
I can remember putting on a roof in the
pouring down rain.
Yeah, that had a little bit of ice to it. That was a fun one.
Been there, done that. Oh, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. Grove City.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All the way down there, yeah.
Yep.
Your dad and your brother.
Yep. What you guys missed was us scraping 9 inches of snow off the day before.
All kinds of fun stuff.
Great times. Great times.
Okay. So lots of experience. So nowadays, mostly focused on
Post-frame construction. Yep.
So that turns itself into what normal people think of as barns, but barn dominiums, jousts, I've heard some people call them, all kinds of things.
Yep. And I think there's a lot of people that just say a barn and all they think of are barns for tractors and horses and, all the above. But now it's turning into, man caves and
all kinds of stuff.
Apartments, or I want my in-laws to stay here, but I don't want them in the same house. So let's put a bedroom out there for them, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So specifically to the community, I made some notes. We're definitely a rural community. Unfortunately, that's becoming less and less here in the area. We're growing, and it's farm grounds getting taken up for development and all kinds of things. But there are still definitely a lot of barns around here, and it's amazing, especially a few years ago. It seems like barns were popping up all over the place. You've been all over the place. And so those altered uses of a barn or new uses for a barn has allowed barns and barn dominiums and all that kind of stuff to become more prevalent through the community. So definitely something that seems to be bigger. And, some people like it's ag, so we don't have to get it inspected.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
You can try that until you have a car parked in there and an inspector drives by.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't pull a permit classified as ag, and then people notice that you have cars parked in there, that's a bit of a no-no.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like Delaware County, I've heard they've started to crack down on CAUV taxes if the majority of your property isn't agricultural use, and so the schools are coming after people saying only this much is used for ag. The rest of your expensive house needs to go at a normal tax rate. So I think that's another thing that's coming with growth is whoa. You're not really a rural community like you used to be.
More regulated.
Your man cave doesn't count as a pole barn anymore. That for whatever.
It's an accessory building.
Accessory building, getting technical.
That's very technical.
But still at the root of our community, I think is a lot of ag and a lot of barns and post frame stuff. And so that's kind of a quality of life type thing around here. And obviously this is my man cave to build things and do things in. So
a lot of time spent in here too.
I was going to say, preface that we've had many hours of conversation. So we'll try to keep this short so you don't have to be bored too much with our random nonsense.
It could, it's short story long.
Short story.
Is our saying.
Yeah, I'm the worst. So, okay. So in the community, it's kind of some hot topics I thought we could talk about. Let's see if I can actually talk directly into where I'm supposed to on this microphone to keep the volume correct. So sorry if it sounds funny. Still learning. So one of the biggest things I think might be the challenge, an opportunity, labor. So you still got two?
One right now.
One?
Yep.
So how many how many do you think you could employ if you could find quality labor?
I think it kind of goes to growth. It's a topic of, okay, you could have 2 to 3 people besides myself on a typical barn build and not just have someone standing around. What comes with that is you get anything more than 3 guys, you're at the point where it's okay, now we got to expand. And so it's like, okay, now
maybe how many crews can you have? Maybe that's a better point to what I'm going towards.
I mean, if you asked me that a year ago, I would say 2 crews easy. Now it's funny because everyone tends to just kind of, everyone's holding a little bit tighter onto their money now.
Their dollars, yes, for sure.
They're counting them instead of just spending them now. But I mean, I think realistically, I mean, you look at some of the bigger companies, I think it all goes by experience and your name. You know, I think you could probably you could do 2 crews. But if you have the right equipment, I mean, your 2 crews are only going to consist of a max of 3 guys.
3 guys. Yeah, I guess I was more speaking to the growth in our community and what's going on here, and the shortage of labor and quality contractors of what I've heard. Like you've said many times, answering the phone gets the business. You know, most of the time people aren't even doing the basics to get the business or do customer service or let alone do the work.
Right.
And so doing a good job, you can kind of write a check, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you do the right thing 3 times and no one even blinks an eye, but you do one thing wrong and you never forget it. So I think it's just quality work, you know, showing up when you're supposed to show up, and just being honest with people goes a long way. And I think with me, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable now in just having 2 guys, having the equipment that makes the labor easier. I think that goes a long way. I mean, you can look at the ROI per se on buying a piece of equipment versus having
committed full-time employee.
Having a full-time employee that, you know, there's not a ton of experienced people per se, to where then you're also taking away from your time just building and then training people,
educating.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I wonder, have we got, or, you know, and sometimes I think there's, for lots of reasons, and not to point any fingers, gaps generationally. I think, you know, the young people that I don't think got a lot of that there was a lot of push and a lot of not incentive, but go to college, don't do that kind of stuff, go somewhere else.
Yep.
And I think that translated into just work hard so you can pay somebody else to do that. So I'm not going to teach you kids how to fix this, how to do that. And that's just less common than it used to be.
Oh, yeah. There's a huge gap in masons.
Oh yeah.
Masons are. The problem is most of the masons are all should be retired by now.
And there's
I mean, you can't find a mason really to do anything. I mean, you can find guys that'll do lick 'em, stick 'em, stone, that type of stuff. But to find block layers, you really don't see it anymore. Everything has just gone to poured walls.
Yeah, and so I guess where I was going with that, one, I feel like there's a kind of a renaissance of craftsmanship and whatnot last 5 years or so. More people wanting hands-on stuff, and I think part of it is because people just want to do hands-on stuff, and whether it's in the shop like this kind of stuff or just the affinity to the nice things of craftsmanship and quality and some of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You're seeing more of that, and I think that's because how do I say it? Some have done well, and some have the finances to do that and pay for that, because obviously that's not cheap. And so anyway, yeah, it's kind of like we were just saying, the haves and the have-nots. You're having this divide of, I can pay for nice, but the cheap option's way too appealing. I'm just going to go cheap, and not that poured walls is the cheap option, but I think
it's become the more sped up. It's the
production.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, most of the houses nowadays, I would say probably 5 out of 6 houses are all just spec houses or track homes or developments that you go in there and you have 3 holes in the ground. You go up and you form 3 basements and you pour them in one day, and then you bam, 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 and then you're out of there. On to the next one. So it's become it's a lost art in that type and that specific trade alone.
So do you think it's something that needs to be taught more, like trades in general? I mean, masonry, all the stuff in general, or do you think it's just something that happened and now it's never really going to be a thing again?
Maybe a mix of both. I think now, because poured walls, they haven't been a thing, for 15, 20 years, maybe, give or take.
More recent.
Growing up where we grew up, we never really saw poured walls. It was all block foundation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I never really saw poured walls till we moved down here. And so I think it's probably the 2 hardest trades is masons and concrete. And everyone still needs concrete, so people are still figuring out a way to do that. People are learning that. But block walls, that type of stuff takes longer. Takes way longer to do. You can pour a basement foundation in 3 to 4 hours, whereas a block foundation takes up to a week, depending on how many people you have there. So I think it's just one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? It's all about just speed. How fast can we get it in the ground? How fast can we get it out of the ground? And I think that is part of it that's kind of gone to the wayside, is getting to where it's just, let's speed up the process to where they found out that, I have nothing against poured walls. I think they're great.
Yeah,
but
there's nothing.
It's just, that's kind of, that and the labor shortage just kind of pushed masons
farther and farther. And that's probably not the best example, because I think the solution there is probably I guess if you look at it objectively, chunks of concrete that you then glue together.
Yeah.
Or one big piece of concrete makes sense.
Yeah.
Some more just framing and electricians. I guess what I'm saying is, what are the things that robots or, I guess I look at it from the outside of, if we as humans don't perform, smart people are going to create other options to do the job that you aren't willing to do. And just that kind of, my brain's thinking 20, 30 years out, when our kids are our age and trying to figure things out, will there be somebody sitting here having a conversation about labor, or will it be, the robots are doing everything? And obviously that's a big conversation.
I don't think that's so far-fetched, but you can see, to an extent, you can see some of that in the concrete world. You have laser screeds. You have laser graders for all your site work. You have some of that stuff there. You see it when they're doing bridges over on the highways and stuff. They have the big the big
gantry thing across.
Yeah, pump it all in there and it kind of screeds it all out. That kind of stuff. So you still have to have. You can cut your shortage back as far as labor goes with that, but as far as I don't know. I've never really thought about like robotic type, or I've never thought about it from my trade side.
Yeah.
To think of like what, I mean, equipment is one.
Maybe not robots, maybe like pre-built.
Sure.
Like, I guess what I'm saying is, the creativity, the like human beings doing work. The movie WALL-E or Idiocracy or any of the movies that talk about we're all going to be dumb in the future because robots are doing everything or whatever the experience is.
Yep.
But just that, if people aren't doing the work, somebody else is going to create something that does it to take the human error and the human expense out of it.
Yep.
And so, like, do we value that as a society or as a culture? Are we going to invest in that and sending kids to school or encouraging them to go do trades so they can create things and fix our problems?
Yeah.
Just more of that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't know how that would work. I think it all comes back to you have to have a sense of pride in whatever it is you're doing. Like, you have to have the desire to be better than you were yesterday. Whatever.
And I think for a purpose too.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah, you have to have a purpose in it. I mean, the one thing I love to see, like when we're doing barns and stuff like that, is the progress. Like, you can get there in the morning, and by the time you leave at the end of the day, you see
something happen.
Whatever it is, whether it's framing or just holes, foundation and brackets like we did today. You show up, there's nothing. You leave, there's something. You can see that there's a progress being made. And
it's going to serve a purpose. It's going to do something for somebody, and it's going to be part of society and culture and living with one another and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I can remember how many times I've tried to clean this shop up and it doesn't look like anything happens. So I can appreciate the progress being made.
Yeah. Post-frame.
So post-frame buildings as houses. So you've done some of those, or you?
Yeah, we've done a few of them.
And all things. So what's probably the biggest push do you think people do that? For the population out there that always thinks that's cool. I remember somebody looking at them thinking, "Ooh, these are cheap options." Not if you build them up to code, they don't get that cheap. Taking one of these structures and putting a bedroom in it or doing something like that under the radar might get you into a cheap.
Yeah, that can get you in some trouble too. But yeah, well, I guess what I've heard is that's the biggest thing is when you try to do, because I've had several people ask, like, well, can you actually do a barn dominium in Union County? And I'm like, well, to my knowledge, yes, but it's basically from ground up. Starting from new, you can do a barn dominium new build very easily as long as it's all up to code.
Right. Taking
an existing structure, and then turning that into a fully finished living quarters is more. There's more.
It's not worth
hoops
it
to jump through per se, and it's not always an option. But I mean, I think as far as the benefit of them, yes, like you said, cost. I heard someone last week tell me that there's people that are building turnkey barn doors for $400 a square foot, and I'm like, whoa! Now that better be like gold-plated flooring, granite countertops, like, and I'm sure it's a quality building. I'm not saying that, but if you're going for a cost, that is not a cost-effective route to go.
Yeah,
and you're losing out on the ability to have a basement.
Right. Well, okay, so for the ones I think you've seen some of them. The ones that I've seen come up on the market, a lot of times are like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like there was one over on 37, one up off 36. Burnt Pond Road. Yep. There's been some out this way. I mean, a lot of them have land with them. Yeah. But it's just amazing. They're not like, I got something out in the back 40 that. So it's amazing. Yeah, they do get that. So I think
it's the thing to do.
It is a thing to do.
Right.
I think architecturally, I guess that's more what I'm trying to conversate about is the open space. And I mean, I've seen the ones that have, the bedrooms up on a loft, up on the back, and then you have the whole open floor plan with, you could put a basketball court in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a lot more options because you don't have bearing walls and basements that have to go all the way up through to the roof line. Because if you're, stick framing trusses on a house, everything has load points that you have to go off of.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, with a barn dominium, you out of a post frame, you have so many more options because you put just a big shell up that's tall enough, you can do just about anything in there.
Whatever you want, yeah.
The hardest thing to do is have a basement.
Right. So what's the craziest thing you've seen in one of these? Or, maybe somebody's talked about doing?
Oh, craziest thing I've seen in a barn dough. Man.
I mean, that guy that had all the campers, that was a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's one that came to mind is
unique.
That was very unique. That's probably a one-off.
Yeah, I mean, because it was basically like any spot a camper could go. It was like prepped that if you wanted to have a camper party.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, you could bring any camper there, plug it in. You'd have water, power. You had sewer dump. You had everything. You go in the garage. You could almost do the same thing. You'd have full power in there for the camper if you wanted them in there. I think the biggest regret that both of us had, the homeowner and I, is not pushing for one bedroom. Just a room with a closet.
Yeah.
Because when you have something like that doesn't have a bedroom, you can't call it a house. One bedroom, you could still call it a house. So we had different hoops to jump through as far as permitting for basically mostly health department septic.
But if it had a bedroom, you could call it a house and it'd be a little different.
Would have been done. And same for electric. If they would have had, because, I mean, I'm not sure. Out there, at least, it was, if this is a house, power company comes out, puts all your service in for free, basically. I think you pay for, I think you dig your own trench. But as far as conduit, wire, the labor, that's all taken care of. They come do it because they know they're getting their money back.
Because you're going to stay, or somebody's most likely going to be in the house to pay the bill.
There's always going to be power on.
Yeah.
So they're going to make their money back. So they come out and just do it.
That's interesting.
So, and I think the same would have happened with that if it was considered a house.
Labeled.
If it would have had one room, it would have been considered a house, blah, 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 blah.
Well, you live and learn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, next go around, if that's the type of hobby shop, weekend hangout you're looking for, there'll be a trickle-down effect as far as how that goes.
Right.
So, I think it's one of those that, do I see a big drastic people wanting barns right now? No, not really. But there's still work out there.
Yeah. Well, and I always think, there's a lot of people that come out this way because it's rural, small town, and all that stuff. And a lot of those people are going to want barns. Maybe they don't have the perfect spot for it, but I think it creates I can't have 40 acres, but I can have 5 acres with a barn and still have a tractor. I can go play in the garden or do whatever. So I think there's still plenty of people that are going to push for that in their life, to have that lifestyle and those kind of things going on. So I think there's plenty to go around.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, land is expensive right now. So
what isn't?
Tell me about it. I don't know.
It's all expensive.
It's all expensive.
So on the growth, on the opportunity, on the future, what do you think is the best thing for young people in trades and the next generation of tradesmen and tradeswomen and all of that? Or what, I guess maybe somebody out there that's got a kid, or if there's a young person watching this, I don't know, what's your encouragement or suggestion to explore the field or be part of its future? I
think it all starts with just being outside. Shutting technology off for a while. If it's a nice day like it is today, go outside. Just be outside. That's what it was for us growing up as kids. We were outside 8, 9, 10 hours a day in the summer. Mm-hmm. And I think that alone just kind of instills just the desire to want to not just be inside, to be outside. Most people, not most people, but you go to work in an office or in a building or wherever you're at, and then you come home, you stay inside. It's just getting out and being involved in stuff like that. Like I know, like Max, if he even hears a truck or a tractor or a combine or a skid loader, then he's done. Like, that's where I'm going. That's where I want to be. And I think just feeding that to the kids when they're young, not that they have to do that or be involved in it, but it gives them an appreciation for it.
And I heard a study that they did, I don't know who did it, but basically it said your the like connection between your brain and your body, but your brain and your hands. I forget how they phrased it. Like your brain is designed that you're to work with your hands. Like typing on a computer doesn't do it, but that we are wired better to do things with our hands, not something on a computer.
Yep.
And so that's kind of going back earlier to the renaissance of craftsmanship and doing stuff. And I think there's just such an element of life that, I don't know. I just feel like most people like doing things with their hands. And I think if they don't, it's just because they haven't figured out the right thing to do.
Sure.
Like rarely do you hear people say, I hate like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously some people like to read and work on computers and stuff, but it's just a natural thing.
I mean, I think clearly you need a mix of everything, right? A mix of all trades or businesses or whatever it is your skill set is, medical professionals. You have to have all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of I think the biggest thing is giving the younger generation, our kids, the opportunity to say, no, I don't really like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's fine. College wasn't for me. Like,
Well, and I think that it's a respectable and a valuable service to the world as a whole to build things and do things and take care of things and fix things and all of that kind of stuff. It's the dirty jobs, micro stuff. If you ever watch any of his stuff, like and that's kind of going to the working with your hands, and we're built for that. Like whether it's nursing or there's so many things that it can apply to. But if you don't have that, the world falls apart. And kind of going back to the earlier part of the conversation, if there's no purpose and pride in doing those kind of things, what's life?
Right. I think it all starts with also just making sure that, like you said, changing the, what's the word I'm looking for? Changing the way you look at people that work in a trade, that show up to dinner dirty, show up to a baseball game that look like they just got out of a mud pit. I mean, I think there just needs to be an equal level of, your job is just as important as my job.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely one thing I've seen change in the community. Growing up, that seemed like that was like half the people, or 3/4 of the people you saw, that was kind of where they came from or who they came from, or they were associated with that type of blue collar trades work, whatever. And a neighbor, past client just up the road said, we were coming home from their cabin down south, and they stopped at Half Pint, and she said, we got so many dirty looks for coming in dirty. And so I think Marysville's got a bit fancier than it used to be, and so I would definitely agree with that.
I think it's just it's an equal playing field. I mean, we're all humans.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so are there any questions that people ask, like common questions that the public asks that you can, maybe somebody has the same question out there to answer your questions?
What do I get asked? Well, I mean, why is everything so expensive is not a bad one. That pretty much happens all the time.
Yeah, but not hard.
Why do you cost so much more than X, Y, or Z? I'm like, well, I'd like to think that I'm right in the middle of the road between Straw Hats and Morton. Like that, we're right in the middle there. And I mean, nowadays you start to hear it more. It's like even people are saying, well, they're not so cheap anymore either. So it all comes back to just
inflation.
Oh yeah, inflation. It's always inflation.
Somebody else's fault. Yep, things are expensive. Any other questions?
If I would have had time to think about that, I would have maybe had an answer for you.
Yep.
I think when it comes to post frame, it's just educating people on why do we choose to do stuff. Why do we not put our posts in the ground? That's a big one that we get all the time. Well, why do you do it that way?
Because what do you do?
We pour piers.
Sorry, I know what you do, but they don't.
Oh, well, we pour pier foundations and we install wet set brackets.
So concrete bracket, post into bracket.
No post in no post in the ground. No matter what people say, treated will still rot, and a lot faster than it used to. So
quality's not what it used to be.
It's it's not. But I mean, we have there's some friends we have right down off of Cotton Slash. They built their house 20 years ago, and he's already had to replace posts in his barn already. So it's and I have some stubborn people that are like, I don't care. I want posts in the ground. I don't want my post sitting on top of concrete. It's like, well, it's not just sitting on top of concrete. There are these massive, the brackets we had to set today were probably 30, 35 pound brackets.
The rebar is like 2-3 feet, isn't it? That gets into the concrete?
Yeah, it's like 18, 24 inches. The brackets we set today were larger because engineers like to architects over-engineer stuff sometimes. But the brackets are larger than what we typically do. So it's like 4 sticks of 5/8 rebar, and plus the brackets are 18 to 24 inches tall above the concrete.
Yeah.
So, that's a big thing, is educating people on
why things are done the way they are.
That's probably one of the few things we do that's so different than how everyone else does it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a newer system, but it's one that we found that we like.
Well, it takes longer
to
do it that way. Right. I mean that from usually things that take longer are better. I'm saying the easy way is dig hole, shove.
Yeah. Because you can go right. You can go right to it. We set concrete today. We're going to wait.
So the fact that I was just pointing out the fact that you're choosing to wait is for a quality reason, not
absolutely.
So it's not like you are looking to spend more time on the same project to get paid the same, taking longer. So you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It's proven that you don't have moisture around the post in the ground sitting there. It doesn't have anywhere to go. It's not like you're putting drains at the bottom of your holes.
Right.
So, that's the biggest thing, is educating people on that type of stuff, as far as why we do what we do differently than what everyone else does.
Makes sense. If my barn starts to move, I'm going to blame you. Now I'm like, should I start checking my posts? What's going on?
Well,
thankfully enough that I've never seen anything move. I think these are old enough that they're still... this was about 30 years ago, so before quality went up.
From what I understand, it's past 15, 20 years it went. Yeah. Because I think there was a chemical in the treated
that
they outlawed that you can no longer use because
it kills the bunnies or something.
Sure.
Now for the community spotlight. What's a spotlight in the community of an organization or something people can support or learn more about trades, construction, schooling?
Well, I feel like the career centers are great. Get your kid involved, not necessarily get them involved, but encourage them to at least look into it,
explore and engage,
see if it's something they're interested in doing. Your brother just made the jump over in Delaware
to teaching schooling.
Construction.
Yep.
So there's one quality, Habitat for Humanity, getting involved in volunteering and stuff like that. See if that's even something you're interested in doing. That type of stuff. It's a really cool
program. I heard a presentation on that recently, and it's not really what you think. It's amazing the system they've got built into it. It's pretty cool. Cool. All right. Well, I think we've rambled on long enough. Hopefully not too short story long.
Maybe one of the shortest conversations we've had in a long time.
Well, I guess when there's a timeline, and there's no
parenting priorities.
No beverage consumed outside of coffee.
No, that's accurate.
All right.
No liquid courage.
Next time. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully that was some good stuff for you. Learn something about your community, maybe something if you ever need a barn or advice on building or anything related, he's a good resource, or can get you connected with a resource, or maybe with another contractor. That's another thing. I try to be a resource, hopefully not to sell you on anything, but just kind of give you some information and help you get a little more out of life, love where you live, all that kind of stuff. So all right, guys, so if you like this video, if you did, subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, take care.